what's going to be a great game between the Cowboys and the Vikings this weekend. Who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. We've already said this between the both of us. Dallas choked that game last week, and that was against Alan Lazard and a countless random group of nobodies, right? No disrespect to the wide receiving core of Green Bay. The secondary of Dallas was just unable to guard Christian Watson and so many other players throughout that second half, or should I say throughout that fourth quarter. We're talking about Justin fucking Jefferson right now. The guy that the Buffalo Bills could not stop. The guy that what seemed to be nobody could stop outside of Darius Slay and Jeff Okuda in the week after. I He's been on an absolute tear. He's been unguardable. So unless Dallas is going to completely take him out of the equation, which I believe all defenses attempt to do, I don't think it's possible. I mean, Trayvon can follow him the entire game. I still think he's going to get big plays. I still think he's going to get big chunks. I still think that Adam Thielen's going to be huge. The acquisition of TJ Hawkinson in the middle of the field is huge. Dalvin Cook hopefully gets some momentum and continues the game that he had against Buffalo in that second half and carries suit throughout the regular game, throughout the regular season, and throughout this primetime game. And by primetime, I mean 4:30, big game against Dallas. This is for to move forward to 9-1. And I'm trying to hype up Kirk Cousins because as long as it's not after 8 o'clock, I'm pretty sure this is the most prime time that Kirk is going to get. But man, I can't. This is usually the time in the season where Dallas starts to unfold. It's like every year Dallas starts off like, oh shit, here they come. Like, oh shit, maybe the Cowboys are for, and then it just falls apart. Their defense was the staple factor that was keeping this team together for the course of this season, especially when Dak was out. And the defense unraveled last week against Aaron Rodgers and the struggling Packers. So it's like that doesn't leave me much faith to stop what looks to be an unstoppable offense in the Minnesota Vikings if you're letting up 30 points to the freaking Green Bay Packers. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I think Minnesota gained enough momentum. I think that they gave themselves enough confidence. They're 4-0 at home. And again, with Dallas's history just showing that they typically try to crumble or start to crumble in the third quarter of the 4-quarter season, I don't know, man. I really can't have any faith in them. I know that Tony Pollard's been carrying the load offensively in terms of running the ball. I know that Dak Prescott has been relatively solid since he's been back from his injury. Some good games, some bad games, and he played relatively well in the first half of that game. But he found a way to turn it around, and I don't even know, man. The Cowboys just do it to themselves. The narrative kind of sits for itself. I don't have anything to say good about them aside from Tony Pollard. I mean, realistically, CeeDee Lamb's been having one hell of a season as well. I mean, because he's getting his targets, he's making the best out of his opportunities. And I think that, this is going to be one of those games where it's like they are looking for a second receiver. I think they need that second guy to step up. It's obviously not been Michael Gallup this year. And I think that they're looking to acquire Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know if that's going to be a good source to rely on, someone who's torn his ACL twice. Dallas is sputtering right now. They're looking to hold on to whatever relevance they can. They're trying to keep up in the NFC East because of Philadelphia being as good as they are, and of course the Giants won last week as well. So overall, I got Minnesota winning this one, probably by a touchdown or so. I will take Minnesota 28-21. I think that just the combined forces of Justin Jefferson and the remainder of that offense is just going to be too much for Dallas's defense to combat against. And I think that Kirk Cousins takes that next step to push them into 9-1.
Yeah, Kev, I mean, I agree with you 100% on this one. I got the Vikings winning this one as well. I think when I look at that game last week that the Vikings had against the Bills, it was by far and away it's the best season. It's the best regular season game I've seen so far. And there's been some good ones that we've seen, but by and large, it was just based off of the fact that, despite the fact that the Vikings were down 27-10 in the second half against the Bills, didn't let them phase them. They were able to bounce back relatively quickly. I mean, Dalvin Cook had an 81-yard scamper for a touchdown that kind of got him back into it. And then they were able to pick off Josh Allen in the red zone. They were able to score a touchdown after that. And then, they were just able to move the ball up and down the field effectively. And then Justin Jefferson comes down with that insane, ridiculous one-handed catch on a 4th and 18 to keep the drive alive. Granted, it didn't result in a touchdown on that drive. Kirk Cousins got stuffed at the 1-yard line on a QB sneak, but the defense was able to recover a fumble by Josh Allen, put it up 30-27. And despite the fact that they gave up a field goal in 30 seconds to Josh Allen and the Bills offense, the Vikings were able to bounce back right in overtime, able to put a field goal on the board, and then they shut it down in defensive terms with being able to intercept Josh Allen that ended the game. And I think when it goes into this game against the Cowboys, Kev, I agree with you. I think they're on cloud nine as far as just momentum is concerned. And I don't know how Dallas's defense is going to be able to stack up against this Vikings offense, just because when I look at the Vikings offense, Kev, like when it comes to Justin Jefferson, he's probably the best receiver in the game, or he's been one of the most productive receivers that we've seen this year. And I don't see that slowing down in any way, shape, or form. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes down with 10 or 11 catches and has somewhere in between 125 to 150 yards receiving and a touchdown or two, simply just because he was able to have one of the best games that he's had this season against arguably the best defense in the league last week in the Bills. And the Cowboys, even though they've had a relatively good defense this year, they got exposed by Green Bay last week. And, you tie that into the fact that they have Adam Thielen. TJ Hawkinson is getting a decent amount of targets. He's getting probably somewhere between 7 to 8 targets per game. Kirk has really made it a point of emphasis to get him the ball consistently throughout the game. I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk kind of goes back into that well against Dallas in this matchup. So, from the Vikings offense perspective, I'm definitely expecting them to put up somewhere around, say, 25 to 30 points in this game. And then when it comes to Dallas's offense, even though they did lose to Green Bay last week, the offense was still able to produce. Granted, there were times where some interceptions by Dak Prescott kind of put the team back a little bit, but they were still able to put up 28 points. Honestly, they should have beaten the Packers last week, but they choked in that fourth quarter and then butchered it in overtime as well. So, granted, you can't win them all, but that was a game that more than likely they should have won. And I think going into this game, momentum is not really on their side here, simply just because they know that they probably screwed up big time last week. And with them going up against what I could consider a superior team in the Vikings, I got to give Minnesota the edge here. Granted, I'm not too high on Minnesota's defense, and I think that Minnesota's defense is going to get exposed against this Cowboys offense led by Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard out of the backfield, and CeeDee Lamb and maybe Michael Gallup in the wide receiving core. But I don't think it's going to be enough for the Cowboys to overtake the Vikings in this game. I think this is going to be a fun game, though, nonetheless. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game, simply just because I think both defenses are going to get exposed in this game. So if I had to put a final score on this one, I'm going to say that the Vikings win this one 31 to 27. I have a little bit more faith in the Vikings offense. And granted, take that with it's kind of crazy for me to say that just because Kirk Cousins is usually somebody that I don't have a lot of faith in to begin with. But with the way that he's been playing, his connection with Justin Jefferson is elite right now. And you look at that with Dak Prescott, he's been having some turnover issues the last couple weeks. If Dallas is going to win this game, I think it's really going to be Dak Prescott having a relatively solid game, and then Tony Pollard, popping off and getting somewhere around 100 yards rushing, and then probably having 4 to 6 catches, and then CeeDee Lamb, winning those one-on-one battles against Minnesota secondary to put up 8-9 receptions for maybe a $125 and a touchdown or two. But I think that the Cowboys are going to be a little bit more turnover prone in this game. I think the Vikings are going to be able to take advantage of it. And I think when it gets to the fourth quarter, I think the Vikings are going to be in a better position to put points on the board than the Cowboys. So I got the Vikings winning this one. They'll improve to 9-1 on the year. And that's just how I see this game playing out.